If you are brand new to Softr, you've never opened the software before, you are going to love this video because I am going to be breaking down for you Softr 101. That is to say, we're going to be going into detail on how, as a beginner, you can approach Softr and build your first no-code app. So if learning more about putting together your first no-code app in Softr is of interest to you, stick around and let's get into it. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Gareth and this is Gap Consulting. It's our mission here to help you unlock the full potential of no-code tools, and Softr is one of those no-code tools that we have been using for years and making a ton of videos about because honestly, it is one of the best ways, if not the best way, to build your first no-code application. Now in this video, as I said, I am going to be showcasing kind of a beginner's approach. This is Softr 101. If you've never seen it before and you know you want to build your first no-code app, this is the place to start. But before I get into the heart of things, I want to invite you to follow along with me. Go ahead and follow the instructions on your screen you see right here to take advantage of a Softr promo code. If you are not already a paying Softr user, you can get your first month for free, and this is over $100 US value. So definitely sign up with that promo code. It also gives some love back to the channel, but more importantly, gives you a free month of Softr so that you can check out all the features I'm going to show you here. Now let's jump on into my screen, but surprisingly, we're not going to start in Softr, and that's because we first need to understand what Softr is, and it's not usually the place that I start building my no-code app, because the data has to live somewhere. Where is your data? Well, in our case, I'm going to be using Airtable as the back end. Softr originally was built as that front-end application for Airtable, and so I still think their Airtable integration is one of the best, if not the best integrations that they offer. So I'm going to be building my back end in Airtable, and by the way, I'm using a template that we offer for free here at Gap Consulting. If you want to grab this template, you can also grab it for free at gapconsulting.io/templates. But let me quickly explain what this template is doing. So we're in the back end, in the database elements of this. And if we are sharing our access to someone external from our organization, things get really costly with Airtable. And that's because, let's imagine that we had like some freelance editors. I have a table right here of editors and they get assigned content and then it's their job to go through and edit this content. Great. But here's the issue. These editors are going to cost me seats in Airtable. So you can imagine that if I were to deploy a front-end interface in Airtable that looks maybe something like this, well, this could get pretty costly, right? This particular editor, we could share this, but each editor would incur my Airtable per seat license, which doesn't make a lot of sense if we're sharing external applications. When we build internal applications, Airtable is still one of my go-to choices, but when we're launching something forward-facing and we're sharing it with hundreds, maybe even 1,000 or more users, then it definitely makes sense for us to not incur a license fee for each user who's going to be signing up for the app. This is where Softr comes into play and one of the areas where it really shines, because Softr can use the back-end database that we build in Airtable, this stuff, with all the different tables that we build here, and then it can grant people access based on their email address. So we can basically say, hey, we're going to send out links to everybody based on these example email addresses. Every time somebody logs into the platform, they're going to be logging into our personal web application that we put on any site we want to. This is the beauty of Softr, because all we need to do is get the rights to a domain. We can then build our own application and publish it on our domain inside of Softr. I'm going to show you exactly how to do this, but we always have to first start here on the back end. So here we are. We've got really two key tables with a third that we're going to drill into. But the two key tables are contents for our example and social media posts. So you can imagine that we're publishing different content, or we have different marketing campaigns, and then we have our social media posts that link to the different content. So we want to be able to say, hey, we put together, let's say, a blog or a vlog or an article, and we're going to share that on different social media posts. And that's what this other one is here. Now, the third component here, and this is critical for every application you build in Softr, the third component is your users table. So for our example, I'm imagining, of course, that our users are these external editors. We are going to want to share access with them. And this is a necessary ingredient for every Softr app if you are, of course, bringing users into the application. You can build a public-facing application where people do not have to log in with Softr, but you're only going to be really scratching the surface of what it can do. If you want to dive into the guts of it and really get a full-blown application, you want unique user experiences. And as a bonus, you can add a role to this as well. This is a simple hack. If you are new to this, maybe what you would start with is wanting to cultivate the experience for your different users. So I could create a role. Let's say I've got managers and I have editors here. So this is going to help me differentiate between the two. And I can label some people as managers and some as editors. And now inside of my Softr app, when I build it, they are going to have different experiences. And I'll show you exactly how to cultivate the different user groups. But let's head over into Softr now and get to work. The first thing it's going to ask when we're building a new application is, how do we want to get started? Are we starting from scratch? Are we starting from a template? And by the way, Softr has nearly 100 templates. Or are we going to start with AI? I actually like AI a lot as a first place to start here, and we can say exactly what we're doing. So we might say, hey, we're making an internal tool, and you see that it gives us a sample prompt. I'm going to highlight this and get rid of it. And I really want to be thoughtful about what I tell the AI. And one of the issues I have right now is that I only get 200 characters if I'm building an app through a prompt with Softr. I really hope that they open this up because I would love to share more information and therefore have a better application built for me. But at a high level, I need to tell Softr what this is. I'm going to say this is an app for editors to create content elements. My tables in Airtable are editors. Let's flip back into Airtable because I've already forgotten. What are my other ones called? I've got contents and social media posts. So let's go with that. Contents and social media posts. All right, now let's also tell Softr, and you'll already notice I'm more than halfway through my allotted count of characters, but let's also tell it I have two user groups in my editors table, and I'll call them managers and editors. And that's about as much as we're going to be able to fit in here, so let's go ahead and preview our app. Now, what Softr is going to do is the AI component is going to build out at least the starting pages for our application. And at first, our application is going to be hosted on a Softr website, a Softr URL. But if we want to in the future, we can redirect this to a different URL. So let's take it one step at a time. So it's created kind of the back end for us here. We can go through different themes in terms of the overall look and feel. I'm going to go with a modern theme here and choose, let's go with a light blue accent color, and we're going to generate our app. So again, it's building this in the background. Of course, we can have full customization over what it's going to create right now. This is simply a launching point. And if it's your first time ever building an application, having a launching point is going to be very helpful. One thing I would strongly recommend, though, is being thoughtful about that prompt. As you saw when I generated my prompt, I was specific to tell it what tables I had in my database and also what different groups I had for my users. I want to see if the AI was smart enough to actually bring that into the application. I tend not to like a darker background on my apps, but we're going to roll with it for now. So I want to direct your attention to a couple of places in Softr. As you're building out your own apps, this is the building component. This is the back end where you get to build it. And when you go into preview mode, what it's going to do is open up an example instance of your application, and you can just kind of browse the app. You can check out the different devices. So if you're on a desktop, this is what it looks like on a tablet, and this is the mobile device. Do note, of course, that it's optimized for mobile devices, and you can scan this to your device and just actually try to check it out from your mobile device. You can also go through up here and preview it as different user types. So we have different users kind of just programmatically added to our application from the beginning. And if we have these different people, we can go in and experience from their perspective. You'll notice that Right now, we've got an individual contributor and manager types here. So we already have two different roles in our application. So this is the place where we are going to be able to preview our app, and it's always advisable that you preview the newest or the latest version of your app before you publish anything to make sure that all your filters are working appropriately, etc. All right, let's go back now into the actual application itself. And one place that we must know about on the left-hand side is the pages to the apps. So these are all the different pages that the AI has created for us. We've got a contents page, and we can drill into each one of these pages and see what is going to be, shown on the application. Now, we haven't actually synced our application to the back-end data yet. We're going to have to get to that in a minute. But right now, it's just using sample information. So you can see it's got some content that it's displaying. There's a button that people can click to edit this. And if we select this block, on the right-hand side of our screen, it's going to say, hey, there's really no data here yet. Do you want to copy the generated data and create an instance somewhere? Or do you want to use your actual data to superpower this application? And of course, in our case, we already have that back end. So I'm going to say, use my data instead. It's going to verify, you sure you don't want to copy out the template data? Yes, I'm sure. And we're going to want to sync it up to a data source. So here you can see we've already synced multiple different Softr applications to Airtable in the past. In this case, we're going to need to add a new data source. It's really actually simple to do this. As I mentioned, Airtable was one of the first and best integrations from Softr, but do notice that you can bring application data from a lot of different online software. So Notion, SmartSuite, Monday, HubSpot, Google Sheets. I mean, it's really almost endless at this point. Anywhere that you're storing data, you can put an app together in Softr and make it bring in that data that you already have in a different part of your business. So here I'm going to choose Airtable. I just say continue. It's going to open up in a new window. This is really simple. I just have to make sure I sync it properly to this. And I think that we call this the content production and social media template. Again, get full access to this template if you sign up at gapconsulting.io/templates. But here we are. I've synced it up and I simply grant access. It's really not hard at all. And now, of course, I need to map not just the database in Airtable, but more specifically, the actual tables and different data points. So here I am on the contents page, right? So obviously over here on the right, I'll select the base that I just gave access to, and then I have to select the proper table. And of course I have three tables. In this case, this is content, so I can map it to my content. What you're going to see happen right here is the actual content that we have living in our database in Airtable is what's showing up here now. That is really powerful stuff. Not only is it able to show up here, but we're able to grant our users different permissions. As you see, we've got an edit button here. So we can add an action to this particular content and say something like, hey, you can edit this information. We can conditionally show this button and say, maybe only managers get permission to edit content. So we can add buttons just like this, make them conditionally visible, thereby giving only certain people permission to take actions inside of our application. But understand that people who are accessing the application can create new records, they can edit existing records, they can delete. I mean, these are called CRUD permissions, right? This stands for create, read, update, and delete. This is full-blown data access. So just because somebody is accessing our Softr app, they are not limited in any way. They can still take all actions to create new records, read everything that we want them to, update only the things we want them to, and ultimately delete the records that we no longer need. So we can grant those permissions at a very granular level based on roles, based on user types, etc. All of these pages are editable, as I was mentioning. We can create new pages and we can add as many blocks as we'd like to a page. And furthermore, we can limit the data that shows up on the block. Back on the source side of things, you'll see that we have not only labeled the source and the base and the table, we can also limit it to a specific view in Airtable. And then we can also set up conditional filters. Maybe, for example, we only want to show content that has not been published yet. So things that are in a particular status or around a specific date, we have full control over these filters to only bring in the elements that we want to on the different components of our app. Very, very powerful stuff. And honestly, probably not being taken advantage of to its full capacity by most of the clients that we've worked with. Now, We also have the theme here. This is where we can go and easily change the look and feel of the app. You'll see the accent color here. If we decide we want to change that up to a green, it's pretty simple to do. And just like that, after a quick save, our app has a new look and feel. So I love the fact that we can quickly and easily update the look of something. Also, we have our data source back here. So this is where we've synced into this app. And you'll also see all the other data sources that we've created at one point in time, most of them for examples on YouTube, if I'm being honest. All right, now for the last really important part of the Softr app building experience, we've got the users. This is critical because right now it's not actually synced to a data source, and it has to be synced in order for us to actually have a functioning app. So we will sync it with the data source, and of course it knows that we already built that connection to Airtable, and it asks if this is where our base is, and it sure is, but we have to find that editors table. This is the critical component of syncing up users inside of Softr. Now we can choose to sync all of the records there, or we might only want to bring in some of the records. Like maybe we want to activate or deactivate people with a checkbox in Airtable. We can then set up rules and say only certain people get access to the app. But for us, we'll say all. And of course, at a minimum, we need an email address. And in our app, we had the email address field back in Airtable. Just as a quick reminder, it just looked like this. It was not an actual email field, it was a text field, but it still works just the same for Softr's purposes. So we can also bring in the name and use an avatar. So if you've included a file in Airtable, your users can actually bring in profile pictures as well. And then you get some Softr managed fields like what time was this user created, date and time, and when was the last time we saw them active in the application. But at a minimum, we need that email address, and that is going to create the different users in our experience. Now, if you recall, the AI, as we built this, tried to create two different users, but it wasn't quite what we wanted. So now it's time for us to dive into user groups. Of course, we should also probably delete the other pieces of information that we have that Softr created as part of the default of the app. So we'll select them here and we can delete them. And we have to, of course, do a little safeguarding here, delete for users forever. And just like that, they are gone. But you'll notice our user groups. We don't have people actually assigned to user groups. And we can do this manually, but it's not my favorite. Instead, I'd like to go into user groups and set up some rules. So we've got conditions here. An individual contributor and a manager were already built. We can add custom groups as needed. And if we go in to edit this, you'll see that we've got role is manager here. Interesting. And what is the rule here? Role is individual contributor. Well, if we actually flip into Airtable, remember we built a role field and Airtable knows that this role field exists because it's now synced with our editors table. Well, if we want to fix these user roles, well, we need to fix the language because the AI wasn't quite smart enough to know exactly how we labeled these roles. So managers, I'm just copying this actually, and I'm going to go into the managers rule here, again, right here, and you'll notice that this says manager singular. The way we created it was managers plural. I don't actually need to have copied it because I see it from the drop down now. So I can click save, and now managers are set up appropriately. Lastly, I can go into edit here and I'll say editors. So these are my two different roles. This is just one way that you can create roles. Sometimes we have conditions like, did this user purchase XYZ? And if they did, they see something. And if they don't, then they're not included in that group. You can get very granular with these permissions, but at a high level, if you're building your first application, it's quite simple to just set up a role and you can just make it a single select field, which basically means back in Airtable, you can only have one option picked here at a time. Notice that I only have one manager, and that is Alice. So if I want to see this information reflected now back into Softr, well, first I have to publish the changes I made to my users. So back in Softr, I publish my app, and this is just taking into account the new changes that we just put out there. I don't actually want to invite users, right, to the app because this is just a demo. So no, let's not do that. But if I go back to my users table now, you'll see that the user groups are loading. And so it's bringing in this information and it's naming these different users or assigning them to groups based on what it found in Airtable. So Alice here, Alice Johnson, is the only manager and everyone else is in the user group that we called individual contributor, which back in Airtable is marked with the field type editors, right? Or the single select dropdown type of editors. So this is how we build different permissions for different users in Softr. And now, of course, for the grand finale, if we go back to our pages, we can assign not only buttons to certain user groups, but we can also conditionally hide elements in our application. This whole block right here, for example, we might say, we don't want the editors to see this. We can go into visibility here and change who can actually see this. We can say, only a logged in user who is a manager can see this block. This is just an example, but this is exactly how you can cultivate the different user groups inside of your application. Once you're ready to go, you can publish this thing. But before we get to that, if you want to assign it to your own specific domain, you can update your custom domain right here. You can go through the steps. You know, if you purchased your domain through Namecheap or GoDaddy, there are certain steps you have to follow to get Softr to be able to publish there. But we have successfully published many applications to specific domains. It's very simple to do. All you need is, of course, to own that domain and have permission to update what's happening there. So you can purchase that and then publish your application, honestly, on pretty much whatever available URL is out there. So I know we went really fast in this video. There's a ton to cover here in Softr, but I hope this gave you the basic building blocks so that you can come together and build your first no-code application. As you go about building these things, understand that they take time. You're not going to get it all right the first time. It's a big learning curve, and if I'm being completely transparent, I'm learning new things every day myself, and I've been doing this actively for 40 or more hours a week for the last 5 or 6 years. So there's definitely a learning curve here, and things continue to improve. Within this industry, there's always new things, so stay with it. Don't get discouraged if your first application isn't exactly what you envisioned. If you do find yourself needing a little bit of help, we've got a team standing by that you can check out on our website and, in fact, in our very own Softr application. So go ahead and swing by our website and you can grab access to that if it's of interest. Of course, if you got value from this, a thumbs up and a subscription to the channel would be amazing, but most importantly, keep on building.